Welcome to the Inspiring Women Collection here at A Lovely Inspiration. This is a visual memoir series that's dedicated to honoring the voices and the contributions of remarkable women of color. I am your host, Layla. I'm a writer, a memoir consultant, and a real life muse who inspires women through the art of storytelling. And as a memoir consultant, I partner with visionary women to preserve their legacies, both in the spoken and the written word. And so this series brings that memoir work that I do to life visually. And so it's my intention to offer wisdom that will guide and inspire women who are navigating their own seasons of growth and transformation. So today, I am honored to introduce you to an amazing guest. Joining me is Monique Fortenberry Esq, a lawyer, a former federal senior executive with more than 25 years of public service behind her. Monique led at the highest levels of government through periods of complexity and institutional change. She built a career marked by excellence and deep contribution. And then in 2025, that career ended unexpectedly. And for someone who had devoted decades of service and risen to senior executive leadership, that ending shook everything. But here's what happened next. Monique looked around and realized this wasn't just happening to her. It was happening to accomplished women across federal service, women who had given decades of their lives and were now standing in the aftermath, wondering who they were without the work that defined them. So, in response to this sudden need, Monique created SisterFeds, a peer support group for former federal employees who need community during one of the hardest transitions of their lives. Then she decided to expand her reach a bit further by creating Life After Federal Service, a YouTube channel where she's now having the conversations that need to be had about identity and grief and what comes after a lifetime of public service ends. So today, through her coaching practice and her next chapter strategy sessions, Monique helps women navigate unplanned retirement, burnout, and reinvention with dignity and respect. And she helps women remember that their worth, their wisdom, and their legacy run far deeper than any position they've ever held. Monique is my personal friend, and the thing I admire most about her is that she didn't wait until she had it all figured out. She was still coping with her own loss when she started helping other women, and that takes courage. And she continues to grow her vision from a small group of women to now a thriving practice that's helping women to put the pieces back together stronger than before. So, Monique, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow, that introduction really touched my heart. Thank you so much for that. What you're doing with this series is incredible, and I'm so thankful to be here with you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. I'm just excited to have you on today. And before we dive in, I always like to start by centering us in the present so that we can get anchored because we're going to tell your story and we're going to go a lot of different places. So let's get centered to the present so that we know where you are at this present moment. And as you know, I always talk about the different seasons that we go through as women. We go through the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And each season of life brings its own gifts, brings its own lessons. And so for you, in this season of your life, what would you say one noun, a person, place, or thing that is truly inspiring you right now?
You're inspiring me. How about that? Why don't we start there? Let's start with Layla
Oh, thank you.
because, and I have another answer, but I do really want to start with you because so Layla and I met as part of a travel group. I don't know how detailed I need to be about that, but we met in a community. And she just came in. I was already in the community and I would have my screen off. She came in, she was ready. She would attend a peer-to-peer session, a coaching session. She would have her camera on. She was ready, asking questions, telling people about her work. And I just thought, wow, who is this woman? And you are, in fact, a lovely inspiration, Layla. And everything that you do impeccably. When you invite people into your world, you make us feel valuable. When you hold space in your teas and other things, you really just treat people so well in ways we don't always experience in the world. And so I think of you a lot as I grow what I'm growing, because I think I want people, I want to do my version of how Layla makes other people feel when they are interacting with her. I want to bring that to the work that I do. So I just want to give you all the flowers, because you do a good job of giving other people flowers. So really,
Oh.
I'm so glad that I get to have you in my life.
Thank you. I'm a receiver, so I will receive all the flowers. I love it. Thank you so
Excellent.
much, Monique. I've also followed your journey. I think it's one that's amazing because we kind of feed off of each other as we go through. We have our group that we are in, and
Yeah.
different women, we see them excelling in certain areas, or perhaps some women may need an extra push or a little bit of a kind word or a boost or something. So I'm so happy, especially in the space that you were in, because that can be life changing for someone to go from
Mm.
having something one day, the ideal life, to having something completely different. And your work is absolutely needed in our world because oftentimes we're told it's our fault or we should have done something better. And those aren't words that I personally would like to hear if I was in that situation. So I could just imagine the work that you do behind the scenes with the women, helping them to cope with the grief and the loss that is what their life or their former vision was. But thank you so much, Monique.
You're welcome. I
Okay.
I'm honored to do that work, and I am actually inspiring myself right now, which is incredible, because I'm doing something completely different. And I could have found a job after federal service, and I'm thankful that I took a pause, but I'm doing so many things that I haven't done that I've been afraid to do. It's unbelievable to me that I have a YouTube channel and that I'm showing up in that way, in ways I've always wanted to show up, but never did. And so this moment has called me forth to be of service, and in doing so, I'm learning new things about myself, trying new things, serving in new ways. And I mean, I just can't even believe it in a way that I would have this kind of energy and verb at such a difficult time, that I would be so motivated to create things that make me feel good, that are aligned with who I am, and that are of service to other people. So, um, I've never said that, but today's the day.
There's a first for everything. I think that was well said because it's so many parts of yourself that you're like, if you're playing a video game, new level unlocked, and like, I didn't know I like this, or maybe I didn't know I didn't want that in my life, but it's just a journey. And so I think that's really profound and it brings us and sets the tone really well for us to get to know you better today.
Okay.
So
Yes.
tell us about yourself. How did you become the woman that you are today, giving of service? Of course, you went from federal service now to a different form of service giving, but just tell us from the beginning to where you are, what makes
Sure.
up you, Monique.
I I became the woman that I am through community. Uh, I think that's the constant in my life, and whether that community is family or friends, coworkers, other people I have come into community with. For me, that is the common theme, is community. And then I think I was born a helper. Some people are like born salespeople. I was not. I did not want to sell Girl Scout cookies, right? But I've been helping people in one way or another really my entire life, and certainly my entire career. It's a thing that comes naturally to me, and also to connect people. So to help connect and bring people into community with one another. that's a natural part of what I did. And I think part of it is that I watched my mother and her sisters do that. Um, they lost their parents at a very early age, and my mom was the youngest. So five sisters, um, two brothers, and the sisters were 20 years apart. And so my mom was 2 years old when her father passed, and 5 years old when her mother passed. And so she was raised by sisters, aunt, other people, and they were part of the Great Migration. That's something I didn't even think about until, I don't know, 5 years ago, and realizing that I knew I was among great women. I hadn't connected, like, oh no, this is part of we are trying to escape the brutality here and find a new way in the North. And they did that together, and that wasn't easy. And it's not easy to be suddenly thrust into, parental roles when you're young, or to lose your parents. And they kept each other, and they kept us. And I have a lot of cousins. And so we grew up in community. We grew up in, we're going to share resources. That's the environment I was in, and it has been with me my entire life. So I draw on that strength, and that's on my mom's side. On my dad's side, they're just incredible people. And my Uncle Irving, who passed away in 2021, after he retired, he became the family genealogist. Maybe he was doing that work before he retired, and he wrote several books about our family. And so there's a lot of pride in family and caring for each other. So it was just in the air as I was growing up, and just kind of the way you did things. So that is part of my beginning. I think another piece of it is that when I was, what was that? I don't know, 9 years old or so, I think we had one of those like solid working class lives where kind of all needs met, as far as we knew, right? We don't know what was actually what needs are actually met, but to the best of our knowledge, all needs were met. And then my dad lost his job, and my mom was sick for a while, and so that dramatically changed our life, our family, and a lot of people in the family helped us during those times. They helped us stay in the schools we were attending, and encouraged us to move forward with our education. I have one older brother, and all of that, I think, all of those investments that people made in me made me realize that sometimes people just need to know that you care about them, that you believe in them, that you will invest in them, and that you can take a very painful situation. Some of those days after my father lost his job, some of those years were very painful years, but they also equipped me to be able to be, knocked down and get back up and find ways to keep going even when things are difficult. And I watched my dad do that. I watched my mom do that. I watched other people in my community do that. And those things take hold in you, especially when you're young. That kind of, we're going to find a way somehow. Now, I think I took that too far, because you need to balance that with taking care of yourself and rest and well-being. So I kind of overlearned that. And I think the rest of this time I've spent trying to swing back into something that's much more balanced. But I think those skills help me um, weather storms, and also be very present when opportunities arose for me.
Wow. I'm just listening intently and making connections about how community saves you every time in every scenario that you've mentioned, family, outside community. Doesn't matter how big or small the community, but I think, like you mentioned from the beginning, that's the anchor and the guiding light that you can always pull strength from. I think the other connection that I made very early on when you mentioned was when your dad lost his job to the point where you are now to seeing it would be different. I don't know if you can tell me, maybe was it a difference in how you processed losing your position, or was it kind of, were you a bit prepared for it? How was that journey?
I was both. So I had been preparing for it. I didn't assume that I was going to continue to have the job I had, but the change happened very swiftly. So January 22nd is when things started to change with my job. And I thought maybe, okay, I'll be put in another position. Or even if I'm going to be fired, it'll take a while to fire because it generally takes time to fire someone in the federal government. And because there's a process to things. So I had been getting myself ready, but it happened just so fast and felt so fast and so complete. Like even though it wasn't all done at once, it did have a sense of finality to it because suddenly I was outside the agency, I was placed on leave, and I didn't have access to one of my really important communities, my work community. I really enjoyed my workplace. I had really great coworkers, an amazing boss. At the time, he was technically my former boss, but he remained my boss. I'd worked for him for 10 years. And I was in the position that I was released from for about 15 months. So I spent most of that time working for this incredible boss who would say to me, okay, how can I help you make your dreams come true at work or just in your life? And he really meant that. And he did that with me and other people. And so and I had colleagues who, if you picked up the phone and you needed something, they would stop what they were doing, they would help you. And that was the culture of the place. And so to suddenly be cut off from that was extremely tough for me and very hard on my spirit and soul. And I didn't expect that work would always work out for me, but I'd been there by then like more than 25 years, not just at that agency, but another agency. And so I remember thinking, and this is before it happened, I thought, well, at this stage, if something should happen and someone wants to fire me, it would take a long enough time that I would be like at the stage of retiring. So maybe I've entered a zone where I'm more safe than I thought I was. And and then boom, right? And then the change happened. So I was both deeply hurt and sad. And I also had reserves inside of me and also some financial reserves that I had been putting aside in the event of this or other things. I guess it's an emergency fund that I thought to myself, okay, I will be able to rely on something. But it was a very confusing time. It affected so many people. I was part of the first wave of people who were placed on administrative leave. And so it was confusing. People didn't know what was going on. It was certainly unprecedented during my time in government. So I had to it knocked me down. And my one of my friends says, "You weren't down." And I said, "Girl, you didn't see it." Yeah.
I have no clue.
You didn't see it. But I don't stay down. Um I don't. And I realized that a lot over this last year. And I think that we need to give ourselves the grace to be down when we're down and also the space to move forward when we're ready to move forward. And I think that if we can do both of those, if we can honor whatever is at the time, there was a time when I just needed to watch Scandal over and over and over again. There was a time for that. And then there was a time for that to wrap up, right? And then there was a time to reach out to people and say, hey, how are you doing? Maybe you're struggling a bit too. Let's come together. And then there was a time to pause. Like, so I um I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. And those kinds of layoffs and restructurings were happening in the private sector. They were happening in state governments and other places. So it didn't start in the federal government. And so I really empathize with anyone who has gone through that. A job loss is a very difficult thing for anyone to navigate. And I think there's something about being part of a mass event. Some people were laid off. Some people accepted an agreement to leave. I accepted an agreement to leave plus an early retirement. And so you had people who were having a lot of different experiences at the same time in government, and then also people who were contractors who just lost contracts like that, and people in nonprofits, and what happens to their funding, or small businesses that relied on feds who were either in their neighborhoods because they were remotely working and going to restaurants and shops, or people downtown who they were able to count on. And we all kind of disappeared in a way. So it had a real significant impact on me and a lot of other people in a lot of different ways. And I'm not over it. I'm not over it. I had my retirement date was December 31st, and I was just a bowl of tears on December 31st, right? And then I updated my LinkedIn profile after that. Put in the end date on
Final.
28 years. Oh, I didn't know. Like, it's almost like it's like grief. You never know the thing that's gonna resurface the big grief. That LinkedIn profile change surfaced the big grief. Um, and then when we got to the anniversary, when January 22nd of 2026 rolled around, that was a tough day too. And so I just say, okay, I honor what is. I honor this grief. And then I was off to Mexico, right? In pursuit of dreams. And those things lightened my spirit and gave me some perspective and allowed me to be around other people who were pursuing their goals and their dreams too. And so I think the lesson for me has been to just be with what is and to give myself space to be there, even if I don't want to be, because I did not want to be crying on New Year's Eve.
I know the
That
feeling.
was not on my bingo card, Layla. That was not the plan. But that's what came up. And I think that for other women who are navigating this, they're dealing with a lot of different things that have come up over time, depending on their circumstances, or maybe when they lost their job. Maybe they were the stabilizer for their family. Those are tough ones because if someone's relied on you for 20 years and you thought you had a steady, stable job and it's gone in an instant, that has real ripple effects. So, um, and for some people,
Absolutely.
it's been a silver lining, right?
Yeah.
For some people, it was the push they needed to do something else. And for me, it was both. It was terribly difficult, and it also had a very big silver lining for me. And I'm trying to live into the silver lining.
That is a very important point. And I think what stood out to me from what you just mentioned recently was the concept of dreaming, from the fact of you having the community that you lost, that you loved so much, your work community, and losing a job, not even because of whatever your,
Right.
like, it's nothing to do with you. That is the most profound, like the perplexing thing about it.
Yeah.
Nothing about your work performance, nothing. Is just because society changed and evolved in a way none of us were expecting. all of a sudden things are completely different. This quote unquote good government jobs that people could rely upon to take care of their families are no longer there in the ways that we used to believe it. Our entire identity has shifted. And so that dream, that American dream that we have, because we're in United States of America, that dream that you had, I want to go a little bit into that so that we can kind of dissect it because I know this is a vulnerable topic and I'm so thankful that you are allowing us to see inside like what was going on in Monique's mind just from one person's perspective because we hear all the stories on the news and we may not be connected to a person where we know, especially in senior leadership, what is going on in their mind and like how do they cope with something like this just coming out of left field. So let's go into the topic of dreams, the American dream that we had, the dream that you initially had to become a lawyer. I really want to talk about that because you said that your boss, your lifetime boss that you love so much, was really pushing forward for you and I'm assuming your other teammates as well
Yes.
to really pursue your dreams and go as far as you can go. And I love bosses. When we have bosses like
Yeah.
that is the
Yeah.
best thing a person could ask for because we hear so many horror stories. And then to have a boss like that, that's so amazing. So the dream that you had, little Monique, what made Monique dream to become a lawyer and then get into government's a federal service and then now changing that dream to something else in Mexico or potentially, so many different dreams that you don't have. So let's talk about your dream, where it started and where it's evolving to.
So my mom says that early on in my life, I said I was going to be a lawyer. I don't remember it, but I have to believe her, right? But I did do oral advocacy. Um, what do you call them? Oral advocacy contests when I was in elementary school, and I read in Catholic Mass at church, and so I think that's where maybe some of that came from. But I really loved science too. So I did really well in science in elementary school. And I thought I was going to be a doctor. And I was in a medical career program for, I don't know if it was Black students only or, students of color at the Illinois Institute of Technology. And so I spent summers studying science there, and then we got internships. And so then I'm in college. I'm getting, I think, a D in organic chemistry, so that helped kill that dream.
Oh
The other
no.
thing was I worked at a hospital one summer, and I was like, I cannot do this. This is not a good scene for me. So I kind of had to put that aside, and I thought I'm not going to keep beating my head up against this and keep trying to pursue this. This just doesn't seem to be it. And so when I was in high school, so we had some really difficult financial times when I was in elementary school and high school. And my dad was driving a cab after he lost his job, and it was just tough. And when I was in, I think it was my sophomore year of college, we were evicted from our home. And I ultimately started living with my aunt and uncle and cousins during breaks and such during when I was in college. But I thought I can't be staying at people's houses all the time, right? And so I was looking for any kind of summer internship that paid room and board and, maybe money too, but hopefully free room and board. And I applied to a summer lawyer intern program at a law school, and I was accepted. And it's because I applied to a bunch of different stuff. That one is just happens to be the one I was accepted to. And it was at University of Wisconsin. And I spent the summer there studying law. I was not being the best student. I had a lot going on. I had a lot going on. But I wasn't the worst student either, but I wasn't like the student I usually like to be. I think I was
Mhm.
really tired. But that summer I was introduced to all these Black lawyers who were either teaching in the program or they were guest lecturers or panelists. And those people just blew me away. And that's when I actually started thinking I would be a lawyer. I mean, I think a lot of us wanted to be like Claire Huxtable, right? She was a
Oh
lawyer,
yeah.
so we can't discount the Claire Huxtable effect. But that program is the thing that really set me on a course to become a lawyer. I also, I mean, this is what's so funny about the whole story, which is I thought that being a lawyer would be a stabilizing force for my family, for myself. So I was craving this stability all along. And so it's really something to have the other end of the story end with you have an abrupt ending. But that's where it started. And I, I wasn't even gonna come to DC or try to come to DC. I wasn't gonna apply to Georgetown. I went to Georgetown Law. Um, I wanted to go to, I got into NYU and I wanted to go there. But I was a resident assistant, free room and board, right? This is all like, how do we make
I
these
was one too. We
work?
have so many things in common. We'll talk offline.
How do we make this money add up? Um, I will say as an aside, my father was driving a cab and I was working, and we would pull the money together and go to the bursar's office and say like, this is what we have, right? This is it. We have to find a way to make this work. But so I was a resident director the following year, and one of my RAs came to me. I was a resident director, and one of my RAs came to me and gave me the Georgetown application. And she said, I decided not to apply. And are you interested? And I had just finished like all these other applications. And I said, sure, I'll apply to Georgetown. And they accepted me, which was shocking to me. So my uncle, godfather, cousin, he's really my cousin, but he's been such a big presence in my life. He was so excited that I got into law school. He's like, come with me and go to New York, go to DC, you'll be able to see the schools. And I got to New York and I was overwhelmed. It was just like I thought I was big city because I was from Chicago, but I got to New York. I know, I thought I
A
was
whole different
so
beast.
I thought I was so Midwestern sophisticated from Chicago, but I got to New York and I looked up and I looked around and I thought, gosh, this is a lot. And then I came to DC and I was staying with my aunt and I rode the metro into Union Station. And I got to Union Station and I looked up at Union Station and I thought, okay, this is where I need to be. And then I got to the school, and one of the people in admissions gave me a tour, and a Black woman, and told me all the reasons why I needed to come to Georgetown. She's like, yeah, I know this isn't that about NYU, but you need to come here because we have a community here, and we have these professors here, and we have this kind of support here. And so she convinced me, and that's how my journey to being a lawyer began.
Amazing. We just have so many things in common. Like I said, we'll connect offline, but a lot of people, it's interesting because being a DC native myself, I always see people come in and they all have a story. They all come from a
Mhm.
certain town, not necessarily from a big city. And then they come into, I guess would be considered a big city, not necessarily New York. New York is a different ball
Yeah.
game, but I guess if you're more politics, legal, law leaning, then you'll come to DC. Or if you're more business and real estate leaning, New York, so many different reasons for just either city. But it's just amazing how your dream started off. You didn't even know.
I
This
didn't
is
even know.
something that I was doing a memoir recap talking about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and
Mm.
how she stated that she would be a Supreme Court Justice of the United States. She didn't know, but she was just so confident about it. So what your
Right.
mom said could potentially be true.
It
And
could be.
earlier on, you never knew
You never
because you
know.
speak
Yeah.
those words out there. You're just like, oh, go about my day. You were in science?
I was in
What?
science. I loved science. I loved rocks. I loved
Wow.
quadratic equations. I loved math. I
Yes.
wasn't especially good at math, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved solving for X. I was a bit of a science nerd.
Wow.
But that wasn't
That wasn't the goal. That
it
wasn't,
was not
that's the
the
thing about
universe
life.
spoke.
Yeah, literally. You just never know where you're going to end up, never know who you're going to meet. It's just amazing. I would never have thought you were in the sciences before. I just always thought, like, okay, legal, I know you for this, but
Right.
wow. And then an internship turned it all around, made your
Turned it
dream.
all
I
around.
think what was also amazing as well, at these different points of your life, you saw the dreams of others being manifested. So that was really what the anchor was for you in that moment, seeing these Black accomplished
Hmm.
lawyers, attorneys that have a community, especially in DC. I'm very familiar with that community. And
Right.
seeing that energy is just like, what have I been doing? I need to be in this. This is my lane right here. So I understand what the
Yeah.
draw was and what kept you there. So then it led you to government service and then where you are today, dreaming a new dream. And you're
Mhm.
learning that the dream doesn't just die, it continues. Not going to get all Langston Hughes with you, but
A dream
right,
deferred.
dream deferred, right? But it continues, right? Your dream isn't deferred. You've lived out a certain dream and now you're elevating to a different dream. So I think that's so amazing because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to live out their dreams. Or if they do get the opportunity, they're afraid to embrace it. They're afraid to touch it. They're even afraid to be in the same room with it. Just sometimes people don't necessarily reach their hand out for what they want because they don't know if they deserve it or they don't know if they have the chops to really get to the end of it, which is so powerful when you're talking about the power of thinking. But thank you so much for sharing that dream and then how that dream led you to where you are today. And so I know that you have learned so many lessons. You've given us so many gems so far just in the time that we've spoken. But what would you say is the greatest lesson of all the things you've learned, the journeys you've been through, that you've learned and kept with you along the way?
Hmm. Gosh, I've learned so many, and some of them really hard lessons, and some lessons I've had to learn over and over and over again. I think that this most recent season has taught me that like there's a source inside of me that I can rely on, and I thought my stability was the federal government. And it was, but the enduring stability is internal, and that I have good reason and a lot of evidence to trust that. And I hope that I wish that for other women, because I was so the thing that really interests me about my story as I'm listening to it and you're reflecting it back to me is I think about all that courage I had when I was younger. And I was like, I'm just going. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. And then I got to a point where I was afraid to pursue certain dreams. And I was doing things I was good at, but there was a whole other part of me that I was neglecting. And I could have found jobs that integrated all of those things. And thankfully, the last job, that job I had the last 10 years, we were able to work in a lot of facilitation and coaching into my work, a lot of employee engagement, things I love to do. But in what universe was I not in a job where I was speaking regularly when I knew I loved to speak? But I was afraid to do it on a regular basis. And I would pop out and I would do a speech or I'd serve on a panel, I'd moderate, and I'd run back in, like, oh God, how did I do? And what did people think? And what are the comments about it? And I just wasn't ready. And even when I had this interim assignment, Layla, I was the acting director of a district office, and I had to give speeches all the time. And I had to engage with stakeholders all the time. And I loved it. And I needed to work on my team and do a lot of investment in them. Talk about three things I love to do. And it was a temporary assignment. And I remember one of my bosses saying to me, you should really think about applying to the permanent position. And I said, no, I don't, no. And she said to me, Monique, things don't always line up like this. They don't. And she said, I'm telling you, they don't always line up this way. This is a special situation. You came from Washington, D.C. to the other side of the country, a headquarters person. Nobody likes headquarters person. People in the feel like, oh, somebody
At
from
all.
headquarters, right? Headquarters. And and I was offered a promotion back in DC to be deputy general counsel. And I thought, well, I'll take that. And I reached out to my mentors who cared about me. Of course, you should do deputy general counsel, right? Because we're
What
clients,
else would they say?
of course, right? And they're like, you give speech, like, what are you talking about? But I had reason to rely on what I knew internally. And I had reason to take that risk. And it turned out that, well, the universe brought me a big risk, which was stop right now, pencils down, 15 minutes. So I've learned that I can survive difficulty. Other women can too. I've learned that it's easy to think that the source is out there. Maybe the source is like the source is God in the universe, right? The ultimate source. But here, the federal government wasn't the source. It was the place, it was the location. It has so much to offer me. But the fear that kept me from being as silly as I want to be as a senior executive, that kept me from doing something like a YouTube channel, I just want to encourage people to go for those things and trust that no matter how it works out, it's going to be a win because you're going to learn something about it, about yourself. You're going to look at yourself and watch yourself being brave. Other people are going to watch you be brave too. And people are watching us. We don't know that they're watching us. I had to have a friend tell me some years ago, people look up to you. People are what? And I said, who's watching me? I don't even know what I'm doing. Who's watching
Exactly. I have
me?
those moments all the time.
Right? I didn't know
Like,
anybody was watching
I'm just
me.
bumping my head here and there, like, what? Who's watching?
Exactly.
Let me straighten up.
Yeah, and so that really said to me, like, okay, I have some additional duties here, but no matter what stage we are, somebody is watching us and looking at us, and we are looking at ourselves, and we are learning from ourselves who we are and what we're capable of. And I think the more courageous steps we take, the more courageous we become. And the more steps we make in fear, we become more of that story. And so, what I'm doing right now, Layla, is I'm fighting for my life, not my physical life, but I'm fighting for this other story. I don't want the story to be about how I was afraid to go for it. I don't want that to be my story in 5 years. If I crash and burn, Layla, I will dance and be happy because I'll know that I tried to go for something that was very much in my heart and spirit to do, where I could be of service to others. And I'd take that any day of the week over fear-based, long-term fear-based decisions. Sometimes it's okay to be like, okay, I just need to do this thing for 6 months, restabilize myself, and get back out there. I spent a long time running from myself, a very long time. And I have to give myself grace for that because I've seen what happens when the bottom falls out, right? When the bottom falls out and it fell out quickly and sharply, like that dip when my father lost his job was a big one and a long-lasting one. So I have to give myself grace for being concerned about entering that world again. And then there comes a time when you have to say, okay, but what do I want my life to be about? What do I want to stand for? What will I be proud of in 5 to 10 years? And so that's what I'm living into. And I want other people to do that too. In small ways and big ways, you don't have to leave your job to make a courageous choice. We can do small things. And sometimes we end up doing large things, but those things become the story of our life. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned is to keep those things in mind. Um, so that we can have the beautiful life that is available to us, even when things are painful and difficult. Uh, I said something in a LinkedIn post last week. It was something like we can weep while we continue to claim our fighting spirit. And I have been weeping and maintaining my fighting spirit. And the weeping falls away, right? It's still there, December 31st. It's still there, but the fighting spirit gets stronger and stronger the more I live into what I know I have to share and what I feel like I'm called to do. And then I watch people like you do it too, and I'm even more inspired. So,
Oh, it was very touching. The last few minutes you just spoke have been so touching, just inspiring me in general, because I just sat here and I was just like, I know I'd never worked in Monique's space before, worked with her, but I just know everything that she just exemplified was the definition of leadership.
mm,
That's what it takes to be a leader. Sometimes people have to see you going through those trials and tribulations because you're the first to do it in order to make them feel comfortable. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing, like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I'm jumping in here and I'll figure it out. Let's just keep going. And you
yeah,
have to just be sometimes the only person to hold your vision and hold it like a child so that it isn't crushed, or especially when it's
yeah,
new and
yeah.
isn't like destroyed by the outside negativity or energy. You have to nurture it. You have to keep it safe. And so it
Hmm.
just seemed like you just held on to that dream, not
Mm,
only exemplifying, just leading you to the leadership position that you reached. And obviously, like, why wouldn't your mentors say that you need to go for this? They've probably been watching you for a long time. Like, I can't wait for the day that she just jumps off and so we can see her in her full glory. And
yeah,
thankfully they were able to see that, and now they're able to see another version of you as well that they probably had no idea about, like you were mentioning the dreams that you had put off, the YouTube channels and a lot of the other things that you were just like, well, I don't think in a leadership position I could do currently at this moment, or it would be appropriate for my
right.
role or for my stature with my employees, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes we hold back, and I feel that that's the part that was connecting to me, because in a lot of the positions I've been in, leadership as well,
Mm,
I'm like, I can't
hmm.
do this, I can't say this, I can't wear this, I have to wear this, or censoring yourself in so many ways, even if it's for a short period of time. It does do, I don't want to say harm, but
Mm,
it limits your capacity to be happy. I can
mm.
definitely feel that, because
Wow.
now everything that I do, I want to be in a space where I feel like, okay, is this making me happy? That's a question I ask myself all the time. And I can just see it like exuding from you. Like,
Hmm.
and the thing that I'm so happy that you started with and I wanted to address was the element and the aspect and the truth and the vulnerability that you aren't over what the traumatic moment was, and who would get over, like, that takes a lot of, that's why I mentioned in the beginning, like, she was still doing it unsure, she was still showing
Yeah,
up
yeah.
not sure if she should do this. I remember I was on your first YouTube video when we had to put out our videos,
Yes.
and I was just like, hey, I'm in the comments somewhere, I'm sure. You know me,
Yeah,
I'm
you
the
are.
little funny bunny wherever, giving energy and giving light. But I was just like, she's got this, she's got this. And then just to
Mm,
watch your progression to where you are today is just amazing. And learning more about you and where you started. You started in Chicago, correct?
correct.
Okay, all the way to DC and different places as well in
Yeah.
between. But just watching that progression, watching that growth, and us talking about life lessons, it's just so powerful, especially being a leader. A leader, oftentimes, I think, I don't know if you've heard this as well, because like I tend to end up in leadership roles, you can probably relate. I don't ask for the leadership roles. It's like I
Right.
wasn't looking for this. And everybody's like, you need to be in that position. This is
Right.
good for you. And I'm like, how is this? I'm just focused on what I need to do, what I
Right.
want
You're just minding your
to.
business, doing your
Yeah,
job.
like how they're like, people look up to you. I'm not even paying attention to that. But I think that's the quality that is like some people clamor for power and they
Yeah.
really strive to receive, as we can see in our world today. Other people,
Hmm.
is just something that's naturally thrust upon them. And they are like, okay, I know how to do this, but I don't know if I want to do it right now. Or you're
Yeah.
still deciding like if you will be the right person at the right time to do this. So that's why I think everything you mentioned is, I could just imagine you as a leader and the people that you work with and how they could have been inspired by you and motivated. And you
Mhm.
just never know, having the conversations with them and helping them in their journey as well. So our lives touch other people's lives in
Yeah.
ways that we have no idea that
No
we are
idea.
impacting other
Yeah.
people. So I thank you. I commend you for that. And I guess the grief process is something that I think is appropriate because I don't want to skip over it. It is a major part of your
Hmm.
journey, and it's something that could also help someone listening. How, because grief, we know, comes in waves.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, hey, and then you talk about the date. The anniversary dates are really touchy.
Hmm.
How have you learned to process grief in this moment? Was it something that you already knew how to process in terms of grief, any form of grief, or is it something that you had to learn and get assistance or help with to learn how to process?
Sure. So I would say both. One is that I have a therapist, and so I was already in therapy before this began, and I was thankful to have that resource. I think another big piece of it is my dad passed away in 2021, and that has been the biggest grief of my life so far. And I had said all the things. He died suddenly, but I had said I thought, okay, whenever this happens, I'll be prepared for it. I don't have anything that's been left unsaid. I've said it out loud. I've said it in writing. I've said all the things. As if you can't outdo grief. You can't outdo water. Like there's just things you can't outdo. And that grief hit me hard, like hard. And I learned, and I attended grief classes. I mean, it's so me to attend a grief class, right? I attended a grief
No
literacy
judgment,
class.
me too. My dad passed in 2022, so I
Oh,
had to go through that journey as well.
yeah. And so I learned that I was gonna have to live with it. At some point it's so big and it's occupying the entire room. And then at some point it's walking with you and then it's popping up and then it's, taking a little break and it's popping up. And so I was able to be much more compassionate with myself about the fact that I knew I was grieving because I had experienced that big grief. I knew like, oh, this is grief. This isn't simply, I don't want to make it simple. This is more than sadness. Sadness is plenty. This is grief. I am grieving the loss of something that I invested more than 25 years of my life in. And so that knowledge, that knowing helped me be down when I was down. And when I was in the grief literacy class, they had us prepare like action plans for what to do when you're grieving. And it was like four categories. And the first category is like, what can you do that costs no money that you can do immediately? And so I went back to my grief book and I would look at it because when you're grieving, you can't necessarily remember the things to do that bring you joy. And I'd be like, oh, go for a walk. Okay, I'll go for a walk. Or, oh, dance. Okay, I should dance. And so I went back to my grief resources when I was going through last year. And then I just gave myself a lot of space to not be okay. I think one of the hard things, though, is that because of my career, people expected me to know what was next and well, what are you looking for? And what are you looking for? What are you looking for? What are you doing? And what, like all these questions. And I'm purely confused, right? I'm trying to
As
process.
anyone would be. And that's
Yeah,
the disconnect that I think a lot of people have, not to cut you,
yeah,
but just because you're in a leadership position, they just,
right.
oh, she's no longer human. She doesn't feel the way
Right,
humans do.
right.
What happened?
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm treading water here.
Yeah.
I'm buying rotisserie chickens because I can't figure out how to cook a full meal right now. So I think that I had learned grief lessons that helped me get through this grief. And then I know there's no timestamp on it. So I can have a grief wave about my father 2 seconds from now. And that's just part of life. Yeah, I realize. I don't like the design. I've been complaining to the universe about the design of it.
You and me both. We have petitions in line.
Yeah. Like, did you really think this through? Um, but that also keeps the person with you in a way too. But I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to control how the grief plays out, but I can figure out how to be with it. Can I respect it? Are there times when I just need to say, yeah, today's a heavy grief day, but I'm still going to do these three things? So I was dancing with grief throughout the year, and I'm still doing the dance. It's a different kind of dance. It's like it's like bursts now instead of the ever presence of it. But I think it is important for me to share with people that I have been grieving, for people to understand that we're just, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and it doesn't matter if you're in a senior leadership role or not. That's a role that is compensated. That's not my humanity, and my humanity suffered a huge loss, even if there are silver linings in it for me, and there are. So I just walk step in step with those two things. And oh, yeah, the other thing I do is I just plug along. Like, if I have a day, I'm just going to do a little bit of something, and then a little bit of something. And then eventually it started adding up to more things. But some days I just didn't do much. And I understand that we don't always have the luxury of that. In my life, I have not always had the luxury of that. That's why I was running, running, running. There was no time for me to pause and take in what was happening. I needed to get to solid ground. But this go round, I did have some space and some time. And I'm thankful that I finally paused to take it in and to be with it, and finally realize that I was going to be okay even if I paused, because I was always afraid, like, what if I don't have the money, and what if I don't have the job, and what if I can't pay the mortgage, and all these things that to other people are completely irrational fears. Like, Monique, what are you talking about? I don't know, it's there, right? And so I'm thankful that I was finally able to say, like, I'm going to be okay. I need to be with this now. I don't need to go get the full-time job now, as much as I want one, as much as I love the workplace, as much as I want to be making more money right now, right? As much as I wanted that, and I wanted it badly, but my internal compass has just gotten louder and louder, and my listening, thankfully, is getting better. Not on every day, not on all the days,
Of course.
but I'm listening more, and then I'm acting accordingly more. And that was what was different about last year for me, is that I wasn't trying to deny what was happening to me. I did with my team. I didn't want to be a drain on my team. Um, so I didn't do too much of that with them. But beyond that, I I was pretty transparent about what I was going through with people who felt like a safe space for that. And I'm still just I stumble through it too, right? So we just make our way through these things. And I've also been inspired by the stories of the women who I coach, and I'm inspired by, my mother and her sisters. And I did make a list of, like, okay, what are things you have overcome in the past? Like, what's the evidence? There's a lawyer, right? What's the evidence?
Yes, present the evidence.
Yeah, what's
State
the
your
evidence?
case.
You can get through this. Okay, you got through that. Okay, you made your way through that. You're still here. You got through that. Was tough. That was a real tough one. Okay. It wasn't pretty, but you got through it. And so I feel like I have more evidence that I really believe like I'm going to be okay, which is unfortunately and fortunately new to me, that kind of deep belief. But that's what I've learned in this last year. And so tomorrow could be a heavy grief day about a loss of something I made a lot of sacrifices for, something I devoted a lot of time to, something I gave a lot of my health to, which I don't advise. I kind of work myself to the bone. And so now it's like, okay, you have a chance to start fresh in a way. And that also includes how I take care of myself. And so I'm trying on new things, including my well-being and how to be with grief and being on the stage. I always wanted, like, I wanted a stage to have a stage in my home.
What?
I just wanted a stage and a microphone,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I just wanted to sing songs and talk and help people and say inspiring things. And
Wow.
so now I have that
Yes,
with my YouTube channel and in other ways too. So
exactly.
grief has been a most unfortunate but good companion this year because it forced me to finally say all of this is temporary. All this stability is an illusion, even when you think you have it. And so get in there. Get in there. Yeah.
Yes. Grief will take off the rose-colored glasses. It'll help you examine yourself in a way that, most people, if you're in a position of leadership or so, you'll have sycophants, the yes men. Oh,
Hmm.
you're great, you're this, you're that. And internally, there are still some things I need to work through. They may not know that privately, but grief is it's a journey. It's a process. It never, like you said, it's a companion now for you. You decide how you want to work with that companion and live with it. And it's just so interesting now that as you're working through your grief, you're also helping other women work through their grief.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing was the protocol of rest,
Hmm.
how you listened to that internal compass. You made sure that the thing about grief, we aren't taught. That's why I asked the question earlier.
No.
We are not taught. So we don't have a manual. Obviously, when we come into this world, we don't have any manual, but we
Hmm.
don't have a manual for grief. So your major first grief response or experience was with your parent. And then losing a parent is already a jarring, like discombobulating emotional roller
Right.
coaster,
Right.
and you're having to navigate through that. And then now recognizing, like, I know what grief is. I have the tools from the resources that I use so I can go back to figure out, okay, how can I process this? It won't rock me as hard as the initial first time. Because generally, like, it's like having a baby the first time. Every time you have a baby, it's going to hurt, of course.
Right.
But the first one gives you, like, okay, I know I did this, I did that. It may not be exactly the same the second, but just
Yeah.
that transition period and going through that, listening to yourself, the internal compass, and just really recognizing that you created your own grief toolbox. And I think it sounds like this is the grief toolbox as you listen to your clients that you're working through with the women or
Yeah.
men. I'm not sure if you have, is it women and men as well, or is it
I
exclusive?
coached, I had a male client just last
Okay.
week.
Yeah, because we're mainly in women's spaces. That's why I always
Right.
ask so. But yes, your clients and you because
Yeah.
everyone's story is important. This is has
Yeah.
nothing to do with what your gender is. So just navigating through that, I could imagine men losing everything as being the breadwinner. Let me get back to topic, but yes. So you're taking this toolbox, you've learned how to use it, and you're still putting more things on the list to do,
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do this differently, or let's add this. And as we live with grief as a companion, and you're now working through that grief process while helping others to do the same and help them put the pieces back together and really recognize like the lesson that you take with you, that federal service, that a good government job or whatever we were taught, that dream initially that we had is not forever. And it's okay that it's not forever. It's okay, maybe not okay how it happened, but it is okay to dream a new dream. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where the whole grief process comes in because these are all tools that people that you work with will need because you are the perfect example for the business that you have created. Like literally, you are the first, like, what is it, the tester, the guinea pig,
Right.
whatever. Like you've been through the trenches of it. So it would be a lot easier to formulate something. And especially during a time where you had limited capacity to even put something together, like, I'm just trying to grieve, I'm trying to process what happened. Let me do something that's simple enough that I can do, that I already have the ground rules for, and it isn't necessarily too triggering. Whereas if you
Mm-hmm.
went directly back into the same workplace, it would trigger
Right.
you every day to be like, oh, I was in this environment and they did this. And
Right.
let me separate myself from those emotions and do something that's more on the community side. That what is your foundation that you always find. And that I would say is the narrative arc of your whole story is that community. You started with that, and that's what you're building today. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess if you had to offer any final words of inspiration to the women who are listening, who are navigating grief, who have been in federal service, who have a lot of the things in common with you, what would be some final words of wisdom, inspiration that would get them to understanding that there is life after federal service, there is life after loss, and you can still live with the grief process? Like, what are some
Yeah.
words of wisdom?
One is I'm so very sorry about what happened to you. It was not your fault. The people I've talked to, these people were high performing people, people who were sacrificing time and all kinds of things to serve their country, and they did so honorably. And so, first of all, it was not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. And anything that you're trying to figure out now is a result of something that you did not create. You're going to create something from it, but you didn't create it. And I would say to them to be gentle with themselves about this transition. And the thing that I see a lot when I'm working with people is how much they need to tell their story. They need to say out loud what happened to them and how it impacted them and how hurt they are or how betrayed they feel given the sacrifices they made. And so I would say, I'm always going to say find community. Um, and it doesn't have to be my community. Who are the people in your world who can hold your story and can walk with you through this moment? And then I would say spend some time getting in touch with where you are in your process. Some people have a new job, but they still miss the old one. Some people need a therapist, right? That would be the best option for them right now. Um, some people are still looking and the money is starting to run out and they need a job. And so people need different things right now. But I would say the thing that allowed you to succeed in government, which is a highly regulated industry that has all this oversight and there's all these rules to follow, that if you could thrive in that environment, I believe you can thrive anywhere. And I believe there is a way forward for you. And I want you to put together a team, your support team. I need somebody who is going to be your cheer person, who's just going to gas you up. I need somebody who has advanced skills, who's been searching for jobs recently, who's found one. I need you maybe to have a money person on that team. I want you to be absolutely without shame when you ask for help from anyone, because this is a situation not of your making. And when I pulled together the first group of people that I reached out to, we were all suffering alone. And I just happened to say, okay, what do I do when I'm feeling like this? Oh, it's community. And that's still going on even now. And we have to create spaces that are safe for Black women. And I would say you are deserving of the space you need to be in this moment. And I encourage you to pull that team together and also be a resource for someone else, because in the same way that someone can come into your team and help you, I bet you that you have skills and wisdom and insight that can help someone else. And I think that when we are in the giving and receiving cycle with people, life tends to be better. That's how it's been for me. And keep going. And that includes keep going can mean I'm resting for the next 30 days. That is about, because that's going to give you fuel and resources and what you need to refuel to get back in, whether it's looking for a job or looking for the second job, because now you're trying to replace an income that you were able to achieve with one job. Really do an assessment and say, what do I need now? And then the final thing I would say is think of three things you're really proud of that you accomplished in government that helped your country, that helped the citizens of this nation. I want you to remember who you were before that moment. And then I want you to think about what you're going to create for yourself as the next chapter after that moment.
Wonderful words. And I hope that any person listening to this really takes that in. Like I was taking some things in that I need for my life just in that process. And thank you for sharing how the Sister Fed came together, the community, just from looking around like, okay. And then the concept of paying it forward. And when you receive, give as well, because it's an equal exchange. It's only going to come back to you. So that's an amazing way to live a life of service. And speaking of service, the final question I have is about in your years of service, over 25 now, when you had to put the number, the
Hmm.
finality on LinkedIn, what would you say looking at your entire timeline up until today? Because you still have some life left. You're still young. You have some years to go. But
Yeah.
what would be the moment, as you mentioned to the women, what are they proud of? What would be the moment or the thing you are most proud of about yourself as Monique Fortenberry Esquire, just Monique in general?
Two things. So I didn't get to have a retirement party, even though I retired early because of the circumstances. And so I posted something on LinkedIn, which was like a recap and saying, this is the end of a significant chapter of my career. And the things people said, like people who had worked for me, um, that knowing that I made a difference in some people's lives really touched me, and that's been really important. I tried to be really intentional about that. I've had a lot of good bosses throughout the years, and so I wanted to be a good leader. I wanted to be proud of the leader I was, even as I was continuing to grow. So I would say the opportunity I've had to be a light in someone's life. And I think the other piece of it is I was part of the team that led our agency's response to COVID. I was a deputy chief operating officer at the time. And we had a agency-wide team led by my boss. And we really said we want to take care of people. And that if we take care of people, then people will take care of the work. But first, we really have to take care of these people. And we put a lot of energy and effort into taking care of people. And that is some of the most sacred work I did in government, was to be part of a team that said, what are the flexibilities people need? What kind of information do people need? We were going out and asking people, what do you need? And then acting on things that we could act on to be a part of something like that in the midst of very dark days, um, was felt like a tremendous act of service to my country.
Well, Monique, we certainly thank you for your service, your years of giving, your years of intentionally caring for others and giving from your leadership style and all the things that you have done. I feel like when you were talking, I thought about what we mentioned earlier about learning about grief. I think our society, a recent society, really learned about grief through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hmm.
We had to learn how to create those communities when we were literally losing people. Losing a career
Yes.
or position is one thing,
Yeah.
but to lose a family member or
Yeah.
friend or coworker to something that you can't see, you don't know how to process. You've only heard about it through ancient history books as far as like pandemic proportions. So I think that was the first culling in a sense, in a way that
Hmm.
held us in a
Yeah.
understanding of things could change. Because
Yeah.
before that, we just thought everything was status quo. We could move forward.
Right.
Everything would be the way it was. And then when we had that, I think that was the first major shift. Then going through obviously the fallout and the pandemic from that, working from home, telehealth, and leaders having to adapt to care about, you could really see who were the true leaders in that moment.
Hmm.
Because when
Hmm.
crisis strikes,
Yeah.
that's when you see who is
Yeah.
who, what people are really made of. And so I
Right.
can absolutely relate to what you were saying as far as like that being a proud moment,
Yeah.
because that was something we've never, like, you don't train for that. And I'm sure in your
Right.
position or role, that had to be a separate training. Like, okay, we need to get on a call. Let's figure this thing out.
Yeah.
How can we adapt for the new circumstances?
Yeah.
So I could see how that was like the first major change. And then obviously people now navigating the next wave that came after that, as far as the losses from jobs and just everything,
Yeah. All
government
of that.
programs, everything that things depend upon, the SBA, all of it, the
Yeah.
fallout, because it's, you can hear one story and you think, oh, well, I feel bad for them, but
Right.
it doesn't affect me. But now we're learning the number one integral human lesson that we are all connected,
That's
whether
right.
we choose to believe that or not. And we're seeing that in real time. And for some people, it's quite uncomfortable. That's why we have a lot of things happening that shouldn't be happening. However, it's really teaching us the lesson of our humanity. Like, we really are connected more than we could ever imagine.
Hmm.
All the things that divide us, that are constructs, artificial constructs to begin with, we're now starting to see the truth of the artificial construct. Like, your neighbor needs you, your
That's right.
friend needs you, your sister, your mom, your child, whatever it is. I was a caregiver, so I understand like
Hmm.
when you have to drop everything because someone needs you and they don't have
Hmm.
anyone else but you to do it. So I understand the life of service. I thank you again for your time in service, because oftentimes we talk to military people and we just think, oh, thank you for your service. But it's
Yeah.
more, it extends
Yeah.
beyond military. What the
Yeah.
government does for our society, in spite of all the things that, despite all the things that people may have negative, but we wouldn't run and function as we are. I'm a patriot, so we wouldn't run and function as
Right.
we are without government service workers. That's
Yeah.
who runs it. We are the
Right.
government, we the people. I'm
We
not
the
going to go down that route. I'm a
we
poli
the
sci
people.
major, but yes, that is what's so integral about having a life of service and now transitioning. You're not changing, just as you mentioned.
Yeah.
We'll end with what we began with, the aspect of community and how you've always been a giver. You've learned to change your and adapt your giving style as you've gone through life, but your life after service is valued. And I can just imagine how many more lives you will touch moving forward after the 25 to 28 years of service that you've given. I can just see Monique on her stage. You never know. You might be on a stage in Mexico next week. Who knows? I
With my
don't know. Monique
thunkaphone.
has so many things coming up the works. So please do. This was a wonderful conversation. Please let us know if there's anyone that's listening, how they could get connected to your service, whether you have a website, your service, your program that we mentioned earlier. For anyone listening, where can they find you and work with you if they're going through or they need what you have to provide?
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about that, Layla. So I have two main things that I'm focusing on right now in terms of my service to the federal community. One is the free resource that is my YouTube channel called Life After Federal Service. And if you Google my name, Monique Fortenberry, Life After Service, or just go to YouTube and search for Life After Federal Service, Monique Fortenberry, you'll find me. Um, and we have a lot of fun there, and we do a lot of good. The other thing I do is I do next chapter strategy sessions, and these are one-on-one 90-minute sessions, largely with women, where we spend time talking about what happened, really tuning into where are you now, what do you need now, what's important to you now, and then we build a plan around that. And that part of it, both parts of it are really, really gratifying for me. One is to be able to be there for someone, but also it's to use my strategic planning skills from my work to help people come up with those concrete steps. And these are things that we usually do on our own. But when we have a kind of shakeup like this in our life, sometimes we need support. And if you are someone who needs support, I would be delighted to work with you. The website is nextchaptersessions.com. And if you go to that site, you can read about the Next Chapter Sessions. You can sign up for my email list. And there are links to my YouTube channel as well as my LinkedIn page. I also have SisterFeds, and I'm in the process of tweaking SisterFeds right now. But you'll be hearing more about that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to make that sustainable and useful and a real safe space for people. But the two main ways right now are actually three. So YouTube channel, sign up for a strategy session, or join my email list. And that's once a month. I will not be in your email box all the time, but I'll be talking to you about my journey and about resources and about how we can get through this together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Monique, for sharing that. Everything that Monique listed today will be in the description box below at the bottom of this video. And so that's how you can stay connected with her work. If you are really in need of this service, I would say take advantage of it, because when we are in moments of unclarity, uncertainty, especially if you're leaving federal service, it is a moment where you need community. Why not reach out? They have a perfectly curated program for you. So thank you very much, Monique, for providing this next layer or level of service for federal employees. You're still connected. You still have a heart for the
Yes,
people.
I
Some
do.
people even like, I'm out, deuces, whatever. I'm not associating anymore. And you're like, no, these are my people. I still
My
care.
people.
And I need to be wrapping my
Yeah,
arms around them in
yes.
their times of need. So thank you
I
so
think
much for having that attitude.
I think I believe people deserve dignified transitions. I
Mm.
believe people deserve to have their careers honored. I think people deserve to be told, thank you for your service. I know what you sacrificed. Everybody deserves a good and honorable and dignified transition. And in this situation, so many people did not have that. And that's one of the things I hope to do with this work on the channel in one-on-one sessions is to honor and respect and dignify the federal service that people gave to their country.
Absolutely. What touched me was the element of remembering the aspect. It's just like losing a loved one. Sometimes you don't have the opportunity to say goodbye or make those
Hmm.
final changes and transitions. And that's something that you could live with forever, that could haunt you. Like, wow, I wish I would have been able to
Hmm.
say goodbye in the way on my terms that I wanted to, because it would close the chapter appropriately for me. And so that's very akin to the work that you are doing. You're helping to close that
Right.
chapter. And
Yeah.
now let's transition in a dignified and respectable way,
Mhm.
honoring your career to a new path, not
Yes.
necessarily a career. Everyone's different, is
Everyone.
bespoke for every individual person. We can't just be like, hey, get up and go get another job.
Right.
That is
No.
so condescending. I hate when I hear that because it discredits what the person's journey is, what they've
Right.
gone through, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes people have enough to live off for the rest of their lives through
Right.
federal service. However, it doesn't change the fact that they do need to figure out what to do with their identity, how to evolve as a human being. There are so many layers. And so Monique can help you to uncover that and figure out what's best for you. So thank you so much, Monique. I
Thank you for having
really am
me here. I
appreciative and I just
appreciate
love,
you so
love,
much.
love, love. You're welcome. I love working with people who care about other people, who
Mhm.
care how we are treated. It doesn't matter who you are, what your race is, or whatever it is, but if
Right.
you've given for our mutual collective cause, I
That's
think that you should have, just like the vets coming home, you should have that support
that's
system.
right.
And
Yes.
sometimes we have failed in so many ways. And so I think it's only befitting that you, as a leader, like I said, this is just so leadership oriented. Just you've just created the next level for people. And I think that it will be a wonderful, amazing. I know you're already doing great things with it now. Just I'm just thinking like it's only been a year and you're already out there running boots on the ground and everything. So I could just imagine the next few years what that would look like because there's still more cuts to come down the line,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and
Mhm.
people may not be prepared for it. But this is a service that's being offered now, and I would say it's a great thing if you take advantage of it if you're in a position to do so. So thank you very
Thank
much,
you so much,
Monique.
Layla.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on my channel. Please go subscribe to her channel, her newsletter, and also sign up for the services she offers and to my lovely community. If this conversation has touched your heart, please do click the like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so that you never miss these powerful conversations. Also, share this message with a woman who needs to hear this today. And this one is not exclusive to women. This is more than women. This is women and men. And if you're looking to continue these kinds of conversations, I invite you to join the lovely community, which is our free sanctuary space where women of color gather for inspiration, for sisterhood, for support. We're all in the support community here. So we're tying each other. It's a network. We're tying in and linking in so that we can be supported into our next endeavors. And so the link will also be in the description box below. And please do let us know in the comments what was your biggest takeaway from Monique's story. So thanks again, Monique, for being here. And until next time, remember that you are and will always be a lovely inspiration.
Bye.
Bye.